Why do people never listen, even when the consequences are obvious? All throughout my life, there has remained one peculiar constant that friends and family are familiar with, but hesitant to readily acknowledge because it makes them, as it should, uncomfortable. A situation arises, I say things related to that situation out loud that would make sense for any sane and reasonable person to take into consideration, and under advisement, they look at me with a blank expression on their face, shake their head, so the lights are on, but nobody's home. Ignore whatever I have offered, saying to me, Dave, you're just too stupid to listen to. And they do whatever they wanted to do anyway. Whatever they did went and blew up in their face, and later on they come back and say, Well, Dave, you were right. It went just like you said it would. Next time I'm going to listen to you. And then the next time around, another situation arises. I say things related to that situation out loud that would make sense for any sane and reasonable person to take into consideration and under advisement. They look at me with a blank expression on their face, shake their head, so the lights are on, but nobody's home, ignore whatever I've offered, saying to me, Dave, when are you ever going to figure out that you're just too stupid to listen to? And they do whatever they wanted to do anyway, and whatever they went and did blows up in their face, and later on they come back again and say, Well, Dave, you were right. It went just like you said it would. Next time I'm going to listen to you. And the wheel of samsara turns once more. So, when the American public elected Donald Trump for a second term as president, I told people that I was done discussing politics forever. That being said, I never once claimed that I was done with "I told you so." Anyone who voted for the man should prepare themselves for that. People don't listen for one reason and one reason only: they don't want to. Now, you can dress it up with a lot of fancy language if you want to, but it all comes down to that in the end. Because the smallest human ego is bigger than the largest cathedral that human beings have ever built. And all of the coming at humans with reason, facts, and logic will never ever penetrate the defenses of their argument of nuh-uh. As the title of Joe Walsh's 1976 live album reads, You can't argue with a sick mind. Now, Buddhists might attribute this to the ego. Psychiatrists and psychologists might attribute this to childhood trauma or unresolved family of origin issues. People where I come from in Houston, Texas, where they invented heat and humidity, might attribute it to being just plain stubborn. Me? I say it's none of the above. It's much simpler. They don't listen because they don't want to. People want to do what they want to do. A lot of it has to do with IQ. 3/4 of the population consists of individuals with either average or below average intelligence. Only 1/4 of the population is of above average intelligence. And I am talking about from a starting point of all of the people who are just one single IQ point above the average IQ of 100, all the way up to the single smartest with the highest IQ in the entire world. And people misunderstand what IQ is really all about. Not everybody with a high IQ is going to be an Einstein, or Matt Damon as Will Hunting, or Sheldon from the Big Bang Theory. It is about possessing traits such as the capacity for abstraction, logic, understanding, self awareness, learning, emotional knowledge, reasoning, planning, creativity, critical thinking, and problem solving, the ability to perceive or infer information and to retain it as knowledge to be applied to adaptive behaviors within an environment or context. Essentially, it means the efficiency with which you can solve problems. So, I'm a pretty good problem solver. That was reflected when I took the tests in school. How you apply that in school, in the workplace, in life, that is quite another story. Not having a high IQ boils down to the basic idea that most people can't figure things out with great efficiency. They just ain't that smart. And people can be book smart and not have a lick of common sense. I have known numerous people who fit that description. I'm usually behind them in traffic, pleading with the saints and angels. Figure it out, figure it out, figure it out, figure it out, figure it out. You may wonder why I have no faith that things will ever change. That's a rather lengthy list. While this is not a comprehensive list, it is the best I can come up with off the top of my head. Humans are comfortable being lazy. They love the creature comforts more than they hate the status quo. They will never be able to put together one boycott that is successful enough to torpedo a corporate entity. The Dems will never keep winning because they are too milquetoasty and spineless. It's almost as if they don't know how language functions, how words work. Humans don't have what it takes. I mean, there's no staying power, no follow through. You get inspired, but inspiration is easy. People get inspired all the time to diet, to exercise, to quit smoking, drinking, and kick heroin, etc. Self-help gurus throughout modern history have built vast empires with castles on the shores of Del Mar, inspiring people who repeatedly fail to follow through on their goals. And so the cycle repeats. People fail to listen, and the cost of their willful ignorance continues to rise. Ignoring warnings always has a cost. People often wonder if what happened in Nazi Germany could happen here. People forget that authoritarianism rarely announces itself with a snarl. It slips in draped in flags and wrapped in words like patriotism and order. The Nazis outlawed desecration of the swastika in 1935, not as tyranny, but as a supposed defense of national honor, just as today's calls to ban flag burning in America are dressed up as protecting values. But as George Santayana warned, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. And when people cheer restrictions on liberty because they flatter their pride, they fail to see that they're applauding the first steps down a very old and very dark road. Let's do a little pattern recognition. History doesn't repeat word for word, but it rhymes. So let's consider these parallels. Early Nazi Germany, 1933 to 1934, and modern U.S. politics. Let's talk about attacks on the free press. Germany, 1933. Independent newspapers shut down, journalists branded enemies. In the U.S. today, media is labeled fake news, and the journalists are called enemies of the people. There's the undermining of democratic norms. In Germany, the Reichstag fire decree suspended liberties, while in the U.S. today, there are efforts to delegitimize elections and there's pressure to prosecute political opponents. There's the use of symbols as loyalty tests. In Germany, flag desecration laws were framed as honor, while in the U.S. today, flag burning bans are promoted as patriotism despite constitutional protection. There's the scapegoating of minorities. In Germany, Jews and Roma were demonized as a threat to the real Germany, while in the U.S. today, immigrants and minorities are painted as threats to the real America. And then there's political violence. In Germany, the brown shirts intimidated their opponents, and in the U.S. today, far-right groups were emboldened, culminating in the January 6 attacks. Cult of personality. In Germany, Hitler had been elevated to the status of savior and was above criticism. In the U.S. today, there's been blind loyalty to a single leader over the Constitution, with one key difference. Germany became a one-party dictatorship in under 2 years. The U.S., for now, still has multiple centers of power resisting. Now let's talk about the battle over books. Never in the history of the world have those burning or banning books turned out to be the good guys. Let me give you a quick rundown. Catholic Index, 1559 to 1966, banned works from Galileo to Enlightenment thinkers. Nazi book burnings, 1933, works by Jewish and liberal authors were torched in public squares. McCarthy era, 1950s. Blacklists and censorship of artists accused of communist sympathies. Today's GOP-led book bans target works about race, LGBTQ plus themes, and American history under the guise of protecting children. It's the same old tool of control, erasure of ideas that challenge authority. History is clear on this point. The people who burn or ban books are never the heroes. They're never the good guys. From the Nazis torching Freud and Einstein in 1933 to the Catholic Church blacklisting Galileo to McCarthyites silencing American writers in the 1950s, every regime that fears free thought reaches for the same tool, erasure. And now, in the 21st century, we see Trump's GOP echoing that same pattern, pushing book bans in schools and libraries under the banner of protecting children, while what they are really protecting is their own fragile ideology from scrutiny. Even critics can be co-opted. In his 2016 essay titled Opioid of the Masses, J.D. Vance called Donald Trump cultural heroin and a purveyor of false promises to the working class, likening his promises to a needle in America's collective vein. Vance described himself as a never-Trump Republican and even questioned privately if Trump was a cynical a-hole or America's Hitler. Today, J.D. Vance is now Trump's vice president. The lesson? Even strong critics can be absorbed into the very machine they once opposed. And now I'd like to share with you a personal haunting memory for me, which is from when I was about 10 or 11 years old, and I saw footage from the Lviv pogroms of July 1941, where a soldier drags a woman by her long hair as others beat people in the streets. I never forgot it. Seeing that brutality etched a single question into my soul: what has to disappear from a person's humanity to make them capable of such cruelty? And the answer is terrifying. There are always people waiting for permission, the green light. When it comes, violence erupts. America has a unique factor, and that is that modern America is different from 1930s Germany. We are a Second Amendment nation with more guns than people. If the SS and Hitler Youth had faced armed citizens during Kristallnacht, history might have looked very different. But don't mistake this for safety. Being armed means nothing without the courage to act and the wisdom to recognize danger before it's too late. The question isn't if it can happen here, it's whether we will see the signs in time. So, what can we do to prevent history from repeating itself? Well, my niece's oldest son is about to vote for the first time. He'll be 18, living in Texas, raised in a religious home, and influenced by people from both sides of the political divide. This message is for him and every other young person who now, for the first time, takes on the honor and the burden of responsibility that is to vote your conscience. It's not hyperbole, not fear-mongering, just facts. He needs to understand the stakes. We all do. I would like to clarify one point. I am not invoking Godwin's law here. As Mike Godwin himself clarified after events like Charlottesville in 2017 and the resurgence of far-right movements, Godwin said explicitly, if you see real Nazis or hear actual fascist rhetoric, you don't have to avoid the comparison, you use it. We must recognize the patterns before they become irreversible. There will always be people who ignore warnings. There will always be those waiting for the green light to commit violence in the name of ideology. And there will always be those who say, it can't happen here, but it can. It has before, and it will again unless we listen. I told you so isn't about gloating, it's about preventing tragedy. History has given us countless warnings. Santayana's words echo once more. Those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. May we listen before it's too late. I love you, and I'm always with you.